Hello there, and welcome to the Rogue Podcast, a Star Wars show. Today, got myself, Jim, and CJ. Apparently, something came up with John very recently, so he won't be able to join us today. David will be coming later on. He's still currently watching the episode, but we have just finished watching part 7 of the AHSOKA show. This one was called, what again? Do you remember the title?
Dreams and Madness.
Dreams and Madness. So, a lot to dive into. This is fresh. I mean, fresh. I just finished it probably 10 minutes ago. I believe that's the same for both of us because it just released less than an hour ago. So 39-minute episode for us. We've got one left after this week and the finale next. So building up to hopefully a grand finale. Grand. Get it? Like Grand Admiral Thrawn.
LOL.
Lols.
But we're going to break it down for you here. Before we get started, please be sure to like the video, subscribe, and tell your friends. Say, hey, guys, I know that you really like the AHSOKA show. Some guys are doing a really great podcast right now. You should follow it and tell me what you think. Something like that. That's what I do. But I'm a nerd, so it is what it is. Anyways, what'd you guys think?
It was a really good episode overall. I think I did have my expectations a little high for getting some more answers, being this close to the end of the season. But if I step back objectively and put that aside, I think there was some really good meat in this episode. Yeah,
we're all about good meat here on the show. I would agree. I would generally think. CJ, you go ahead because I know once I start talking, it's hard to stop me. So, CJ, what were your thoughts initially?
I thought it was good. I was kind of under the impression earlier on that this was a one-season show, but it doesn't really feel like that's what they're going for. I don't know if we have any news, like, are they planning on doing a second season, or are they adding something into this?
They have not announced the second season.
Yeah, and I think...
Go ahead.
I think Filoni's plan is to lead this into a movie of his that explains whatever is not wrapped up here in the First Order's rise, or early rise.
Yeah, we do know that this is leading to the Filoni-verse movie that he has. So I imagine that this will lead into that. Probably Mando will lead into it. Maybe Skeleton Crew as well. It's going to be in that time frame. Mm-hmm. So I'm guessing all these shows are going to build up towards that final movie that's going to be coming in 2026.
I believe so. Yeah, and that does not. And I do know that season 2 AHSOKA is on the table, but it relies heavily on how well this season does. So
I imagine it should be doing pretty well. It's a pretty good show.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. I guess that's part of, kind of what you said, where you expected maybe a little bit more finality, or like it culminating to a little bit more, and it's not really. But that's not necessarily bad if they're doing a second season. It'd be kind of weird if it was one season, there was nothing after it, because they would have to really rush an ending.
There is,
but I think it's played out about how we've expected.
There is one major flaw or downside or upsetting part about this all, is that one of the plot lines that has been really interesting, and I'm excited to see where it's going, has been, what is this thing that Balin is chasing? And I have a hard time seeing that story wrapped up in this last episode. And we know that we're not going to get any more of him with the passing of what's his name? I forgot.
Ray Stevens.
So his story has to wrap up this season, more or less. And it's just like, we don't even know what his goal and his purpose is.
I don't know if it can, because I think he passed after it wrapped, and they may have totally had plans for him.
Oh, yeah. It was after it wrapped this past. So they could have had a lot of plans for him for season 2 or in the finale movie. I don't know. But it's just going to be a hard time.
I think they're just going to have to get another actor to play him.
Maybe. Or they could write away something that happened to him. I don't know. I don't think they'll have another
actor. Put it into Legends or something.
But you can definitely tell that their plan was not for his story to be over next episode. Like, he's not going to die next episode. No way. It just doesn't make sense.
No, it'd be a weird decision, writing wise.
So it's weird because you're right. We have this one episode left, and there's a lot of things that have to happen. There's going to be some kind of conflict, of course, with them getting to Thrawn right before he leaves Thrawn's gonna get away at the last minute, and they're gonna have to have some way that they either get on the ship and they're on the ship when it takes off or something, or they just hop back on the Purrgil to get back there. I don't know, or maybe they end up getting stranded.
I'm under the impression. I mean, it's what I kind of took from the earlier minutes of the episode is that the Purrgil had played their part, and they're like, "All right, I'm out of here. I'm not
done."
Yeah, they like just jumped out,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know if they're just going to pop back in right at the right time. Again, that would be kind of cliche in my opinion.
Very convenient.
Very convenient. I think the way they had them like be in danger, so they had to jump out real fast, is their way of like, okay, their job here is done. Now they're going to have to find another way home.
Yeah, I'm overall, I guess I'll give my thoughts is I thought it was good. I would agree that I was expecting this to be more so a 2-part finale. Like a lot of the things that we've seen in this era of Star Wars, episode 7 and 8 kind of act as a 2-part finale. And it didn't really feel like that in this case. It definitely feels like we're going to get a final, just one episode finale. Hopefully it's a longer finale, because I do feel like there's a lot of things that have to be accomplished here. Or at least that they're going to try to accomplish a few things. Like if all that they're accomplishing is just a battle between Thrawn and Ezra and Ahsoka, then that wouldn't be that wouldn't live up to the hype, I don't think, that this season is built so far. And also we have something going on with Hera as well. I don't think they're going to have a way to factor into this episode too much though. So yeah, there's just things that have to be wrapped up, and it is going to be a short time, Phil. And I think that it would have made more sense if they had more time after this season to kind of explain some Balin stuff. But we'll see. I don't know. I mean, he was very interesting in this episode. Just some of the things that he said and did were interesting. I'm excited to get into talking points about that.
Yeah, I agree. There's some things to talk about with him. But
go ahead.
I was just gonna lead into the first few minutes of the episode.
Yep.
I'm glad that we got back into Ahsoka's storyline, and last week we were kind of moved away from her for a little bit, and it wasn't really an Ahsoka focused episode at all. So I was glad to see that we're kind of shifting back to her point of view for things and what she's going through. What'd you think of I didn't know Hayden Christensen was going to have any kind of role in this episode.
I figured we'd have him again because from the teaser trailer where Hayden Christensen is saying the lines that he said in this episode, it was like a voiceover, and I wasn't sure because I thought maybe it was lines that they recorded for the scenes that we already saw him in.
Right.
But I figured we'd see him again, whether it's this episode or the last one. So that was really cool to see. I did enjoy that, but it wasn't the Hera stuff before that? It started with Hera.
The Hera stuff was the first.
Did it start? Did it start with it? Okay,
yeah.
Maybe I got those two scenes confused or out of order.
I mean, it doesn't matter if we go in chronologically or not, but it'll help me keep my brain.
So this guy, Xiono,
he's got to be a spy.
Senators,
nothing else makes sense.
He's got to be, because it's almost to the point where I'm surprised that the other senators weren't giving him side eye. Like, dude,
it's your problem.
You're going out of your way to make sure that this.
Well, even when he's objecting to evidence being brought forward, you know what I mean? So but the thing is he dies he's in the Resistance show, and he dies in that show at the hands of the Empire. So it's like,
well, I mean, he got what he deserved.
I feel like he's just a very poorly written character.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
But his
motivations make no sense.
If he was truly, part of the Shadow. What's it called? The Shadow Thrawn Shadow Collective. He's not doing a very good job of playing from the shadows. He's reaching out of it right now, being a little too obvious.
Yeah. And I don't know what his purpose. Maybe he's just trying. He's in denial about it.
Right.
But objecting to evidence being shown or something or whatever it may be, it just doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like. In some ways, this is a really great show, but some of the individual dialogue and sequences between characters, they struggle for me sometimes. That being one of them.
The whole scene, or just
that whole character. Every time he speaks, it just takes me out of it. I'm just like, this guy's not believable at all.
Right. I agree. Yeah.
Pretty much anytime someone from the New Republic is talking, it's like a side character. It just seems so cheap and like forced. You know what I mean? It just does not seem like it's well done. Like politics can be done really well in Star Wars and in shows, and the subterfuge that politicians put into play. But like the New Republic politicians are just absolute morons, and they have like one character trait, and that's their entire and that's their entire character, and it's just like, oh my gosh. But like on the other hand, when you go to Andor, the characters are very good and well written, and there's depth to them. Even some of the side characters you don't get too many scenes from are interesting.
I feel like maybe the writers for this show and season feel like there's so much they're trying to pack in that they kind of shot themselves in the foot with things that needed to be fleshed out more to make it make more sense. You're not hitting the mark very well because you need to flesh out that character and their dialogue.
Yeah, or even just have the dialogue be written better or directed better. Like, all right, that wasn't a good cut, a good take. Let's do this again, and I need you to sell the audience that you're afraid of the possibility of Thrawn happening, and that you're unwilling to accept that as a possibility. Not just like some raging moron who's unwilling to even consider the possibility of something like this being true, despite the evidence and the eyewitness reports of heroes throughout the entire rebellion, and just like totally disregarding them. It makes no sense. So that bothers me somewhat. But it was really cool to see C-3PO.
Another thing that caught me completely by surprise.
Yeah,
like, I didn't watch the trailers or anything like that, so I didn't have anything spoiled or any expectations for that.
Yeah, it was nice. For a Luke.
Nowhere in the trailers.
Luke
would have been cool. Luke would have been cool if he had some impact here, especially because we know that they can do it. I would have enjoyed that, and I wonder if they just didn't want to spend the money to do the same thing for like Leia, or maybe because Leia's passed, they didn't want to touch on it or something. I don't know.
Money,
because they easily could have, but yeah, it might have just been they didn't want to spend the money on it because that's a very expensive shot, and we've had her pretty recently. But yeah, it was cool to see 3PO voiced by Anthony Daniels again. I thought that was done really well. I enjoyed seeing him for sure. And we get another C-3PO reference later on in the episode. Did you guys catch it? I'll explain later when we get to it. You'll know when I hear it or when I say it. But
so about
good.
C-3PO's little. Yeah. I did the costume change a little bit.
Definitely the wiring. The wiring stuff.
It was
going on with his stomach was weird.
It kind of took me out for a second. Yeah, it was very obvious to me. I don't want to be too critical because I was glad to see C-3PO, but it was very obvious that there was a man underneath the mesh of that suit.
Yeah,
a little more so than in times past.
Yeah. Well, he was CG in the prequels, or not all of them. No, actually, I think Daniels was in the suit the whole time in the prequels.
I mean, not episode 1, obviously.
Well, yeah,
but his gold plating covered up a little bit more of his midriff.
There was something weird, and maybe Daniel's just like, look, I can't move the way I used to and be stuck inside this thing. You have to make.
Oh yeah, that's totally fair. That's totally fair. He's I'm glad that he was there at all.
I mean, I can't guarantee he was the one inside the suit. I like to imagine that he was.
I mean, the mannerisms looked right.
Yeah, it definitely looked right. So, I mean, it's very. I feel like a lot of people could do the 3PO mannerisms, but overall, it's cool to see that.
Worried look.
We got a lot of stuff to talk about, though. Is there anything else in there that you guys wanted to mention? I mean, I didn't feel it was that important.
I wonder how much Leia knows.
Well, we know that Leia has spoken with Hera already about this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, up until like right before they found Ahsoka, right?
What do you mean?
That was when she communicated her with her.
Yeah, but I imagine that they reached back out to her and talked to her again so that Leia could cover for her. So I'm sure.
I mean, I guess
her situation.
Like the only time she could have done that would have been right before she got on the whale, which maybe she did that.
No, she could have done it from her ship, and Captain Teva could have reached out to her. This takes time.
I guess Teva could have. I mean, just told him.
Well, because remember, did you notice Hera like looking at Teva when he walked in and he shook his head, being like he didn't have it, but Leia apparently sent 3PO in her place.
Leia.
She's too busy with other matters.
Yep.
Okay, so then we cut to Ahsoka training, going through her combat forms. Really enjoyed that. I was very excited to see Anakin roaming around giving his speech. And perhaps do you think that was a recording of him training her there from what we see in Tales of the Jedi?
That's what that's what I was thinking the whole time.
Yeah, like he recorded that training session.
Well,
Yeah,
you said
so-
she said there's
there's-
20 of them.
Right. So we've seen 2 then. Right?
Yeah, because we see one in Rebels.
Right. So we've seen 2 of them now.
Mm.
And so we potentially have some more of these to work with. They can
Yeah.
sprinkle in throughout whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be cool to see. Just to have him around more.
A
I
full
would like to
lightsaber
see
form
him as
right
a
there.
Force Ghost. I would love to see him as a Force Ghost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Where
doesn't
they
make
did?
sense. It doesn't make sense for me or to me for him to not show up as a Force Ghost. If not this season, next.
We haven't got
at
him
some
enough
point.
as a Force Ghost.
Well, are we saying that was a Force Ghost, or are we saying that was? To me, I'm saying Force Ghost in our world, like Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
and Yoda and so on.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I wonder if we will.
I'd enjoy that. Remember when you could play as a Force Ghost in Lego Star Wars?
Yeah.
That just like popped in my head. I totally forgot.
Good
about
times.
that.
The Lego Star
Those
Wars.
days. You're running around with lightsabers.
Little
Like
Lego Star Wars.
that was where we should have known that Force Ghosts can interact with the physical world.
Yep.
Lego Star Wars told us first, and we ignored it.
Never ignore the Legos.
But Ahsoka's training, and I really enjoyed that, and it just was cool to see him talking about the different combatants, Asajj Ventress, Grievous, Dooku, and just what you might see in the Clone Wars, but then affecting what's happening, how that still applies to her life today, as she's about to go fight 2 other false Jedi or dark Jedi, whatever you want to call them. Really enjoyed that whole sequence. It was awesome, and how she just goes to continue to talk about how Anakin really was a good master. And it just kind of puts on a flip from where we last saw her, where she just lived in a state of regret and would barely even want to talk about Anakin and just put it at the back of her head just because of all the pain and guilt that she had carrying with it.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'll be able to focus on the man that Anakin was and the master that he was before Darth Vader killed him.
Yeah, and I think being able to communicate with him and say something to him face to face, like reiterated to her that, she can alleviate some of her, like you said, just some of her guilt of thinking that, she could have done something more for him.
Yep.
But good scene.
Yeah, I really enjoyed throughout the whole episode just seeing Ahsoka's desperation disappear that she had in the previous episodes, where everything had to be done this way. We had to go fast. We had to, and instead now she's calm. She's accepting the will of the Force, trusting the Force to guide her, and saying, "No, I really do believe that the Whales are leading us where we need them to be." And she's, even when she goes to fight Balin later on, which is jumping ahead a bit, just being more calm and knowing what she has to do, not saying I have to fight this battle, I have to win this battle, I have to kill this guy, but there's a mission, there's something that I have to do, and just getting you off and accomplishes that. She's just much her mind is clear, you can tell.
Yeah, 100%.
What's the path forward?
Okay, maybe we won't go scene by scene because there's just so many things to talk about, and we can just talk about it as it naturally flows. My highlight of this episode was Thrawn for me.
Oh yeah, this episode, as opposed to last episode, I noticed a lot more of his tactician come out. A lot more of what I expected to see. Like, granted, we didn't have a whole lot of dialogue with him last episode. It was
or
kind of
any
more
kind of combat or anything like that.
Right. They were like, here he is. He's Thrawn, whatever.
Chilling.
And
Chilling.
it wasn't that long that he was on screen. And now we're seeing the process of Thrawn, the tactician, strategizing, being one step ahead.
Even more than one step ahead. He's been set.
Yeah.
As soon as he was aware of the presence of Ahsoka coming, he's been 5-6 steps ahead. I mean,
ramp up production.
Yeah. What's that?
Ramp up production. Move those things faster.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Like move those crates faster.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I'm sure he's just been like ramping everybody up. Like, oh, it's
double
time to
shifts
go.
for everybody.
Yeah.
But he puts the minefield down at the exit point of the hyperspace lane. Is not desperately trying to kill her right away, knowing what his goal is to be able to leave, whether she's here or not does not matter, and prioritizing that goal, trying to keep her preoccupied using the ability to find her so she can't just hide and sabotage them, forcing her out and forcing her to waste time evading fighters, forcing her to go fight in combat. Once they realize that enough time has been stalled, pulling back the troops to return and to leave before they have an opportunity to interfere. Like he's not even just a step ahead. He is several steps ahead. It looks like, Ahsoka's doing what she wants to do and things are being accomplished and they feel good about things. But the truth of the matter is Thrawn's objective is always in sight. And he's done exactly what he needed to do to make sure his objective is obtained.
And as I was watching that all unfold, I don't think there's anything Ahsoka really could have done differently to.
No, not at all. She was forced down that path.
Yeah, it's like she was like literally funneled into this one path, and granted, like you said, she just accepted it for what it was and said, I'll go for my goal as the Force is guiding me down this. But like, there's nothing she could have done differently coming out of hyperspace to like make things turn out any better for her or less better for Thrawn.
No, there's nothing she could have done differently. She had to do pretty much exactly as she did. I mean, I guess she could have decided if she wanted to fly her fighter down and start like blasting the turret or the spire.
Yeah, but
that would have gone too well for her.
Yeah, that really wouldn't have gone well.
The interesting thing is she could still like try to catch up to him before he leaves. So he still hasn't left yet.
That is one flaw I personally thought of in Thrawn's tactics. Like, do you need those fighters? Do you need those fighters so badly? The little snub fighters, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
That just take off.
That they couldn't just like keep firing at Hu Yang so that they could not eventually get in their ship and fly. Because if you just leave them on the ground and just keep that ship preoccupied, then they're never going to be getting to Thrawn. It's just not happening.
What I think is that the time that Ahsoka and Ezra and Sabine need to get back on the ship, my thinking is that there's going to be some sort of docking procedure that's going to take some time to do with the Chimera and the ring.
That's what I'm saying. If I was Thrawn, I would have said, no, we're keeping that ship occupied as long as possible.
Yeah,
if we leave behind these fighters,
we got to take off. We got to dock with this ring. We got to deactivate the minefield.
That's a good point. Oh no, I forgot about this. Whole thing
minor details.
I'm a little out of practice, so I kind of forgot about the minefield.
1, 2, skip a few.
But yeah, that's actually a good point. I wouldn't be surprised if they get there like while the Chimera is trying to dock and stuff.
Right, because it's good. That's going to take some. I feel like that's going to take a little bit more time.
Very much episode 5 though.
Exactly.
Episode 4.
Like there's things that really need to happen here that I'm looking at the time we have left and what needs to happen.
Well, I guess I meant it's very similar to episode 4. You show up right as the thing's about to take off in hyperspace and you have a big battle. And
okay. I get
tracking beacon.
I thought you were saying
we'll see you later.
All this should be happening in episode 5 so that we have more time. But I get what you're saying.
Well, I mean, my guess is the final scene is essentially going to be Thrawn's ship taking off into hyperspace. I mean, there might be a couple things after that, but that's going to be my guess. I'd
be a little disheartened if they leave us with Ezra and Ahsoka and Sabine being stranded in this galaxy and us having to wait a large amount of time to see that resolve in some way.
Yeah.
Or a movie. Next year.
Well, they might be on Thrawn's ship. Or I could see it end with Balin having some kind of insane power that he's now found and them having to fight him instead. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of possibilities, but I don't want to get too much into theory too soon.
I know. Theory's fun though. Theory's
Star
fun.
Wars theory.
Whoa! He's not paying us to mention his name. I'm not giving him any free advertising.
I was trying to think of something outrageous.
What do you mean?
I couldn't think of anything. An outrageous theory.
A crazy theory.
Yeah.
Okay. So one thing about Thrawn that I found to be interesting, and then I didn't really catch it the first time I watched, but as they did like the previously on, and they talked about Thrawn saying, I want to know everything about Ahsoka, where she's from, her home planet, her master, her history, everything. It was very Thrawn-esque. Of course, he wants to know his enemy. But specifically, I knew that as soon as they came back and he reads that, I knew that he was going to take note in her master being Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah.
And this is something I know John takes issue with. He does not like the idea of people knowing that Anakin is Vader. But that is something that's been established in the books. So
yeah,
Thrawn
Thrawn knew that. Yeah, he
Yeah.
knew that.
He knew Anakin when he was a Jedi Master from a mission that they did together, where they met each other, and
Right.
they were on 2 different missions, but they worked together. And then later, as
Vader.
Palpatine puts Vader and Anakin on a mission together to, I don't really recall exactly
and
the
Anakin?
purpose. Or
Jeez.
Vader,
Thrawn.
I'm sorry, Vader and Thrawn together.
I knew
Jeez.
what you meant.
And through their discussions and conversations and whatnot, Thrawn's able to put 2 and 2 together, but he never like tells Vader that he knows who he is. But in the book, you learn
Yeah.
he
But he tells
figured
the
out.
Emperor.
He's like double vision.
Gosh, the worst.
That was that book,
ever.
right, David?
Oh my gosh, the worst book ever.
Yeah. Oh, it's the worst.
I
So
can't believe you had to use a book thing for that.
in that book, whenever Vader would like use the Force and like predict things that are happening, whether it was Vader or Anakin, he would say double vision, and then
Twice.
he would
Did he actually say
describe-
it?
Yeah, he would say it, and then
What?
he would
And
he
the
would talk
narrator
about
would read
all
it.
the things that are happening in the battle. He's like, I sensed a blaster coming from my back and deflected to the rear. And
Double vision.
then he'd be like, double vision.
sensed left.
Because
Who wrote
said
that?
right. I said
Timothy Zahn.
double vision.
That was a
right.
Timothy Zahn?
Yeah, he wrote all the Thrawn books.
Oh.
That was by far the worst Thrawn book ever written.
Oh.
Not only did it have double vision, but now also I did the audiobook, so maybe it comes across different. And like it's not supposed to be him seeing it, but you're supposed to be like, as a reader, you're just reading, knowing that it's going to be describing what he's sensing in the Force.
Still
But
doesn't quite
in the
hit mark.
audio version, it's the voice of Vader.
I still don't understand like what double vision means. Like, oh, I'm
It
four
just
eyes
means you
now.
can see things with your eyes and you sense things with the Force.
I guess
That's what it's
weird.
trying to say.
All right.
But then that's the same book that when Thrawn is with Anakin for that portion of the book is a good jump back and forth between Anakin's story and
Yeah,
Vader's story.
Vader.
That's also
Same
when the
climate.
audio guy would talk as Padme. He'd be like, "Oh, Anakin!" It was the worst. It was so
I thought of-
bad.
How is blossoms?
It was
Oh,
so
Lord.
bad. So I highly recommend everyone do the audible version of that book.
when
Brandon
Jim
House
read
read.
that, excerpt from the book last week, it said something about like something blossoming and like opening up, and I was just like, "What in tarnation was that actually part of the book?"
Did you read
It's
the
like,
excerpt
yeah.
of the book last week?
John
missed
did
that in the
actually.
podcast.
Yeah, John read like an excerpt from it, and
Yeah, it was actually a good call out because in Thrawn, the newer Thrawn books, it actually kind of does reveal that Thrawn already was aware of Ahsoka being
yeah,
Anakin's apprentice, but I don't know if
Of Ahsoka?
yeah,
yes,
yeah. He actually like mentioned her.
he actually
Oh,
mentioned her by
Anakin
name.
mentions Ahsoka?
Yeah, it's like by name. Like Padme and Thrawn are talking about Ahsoka
Yeah.
by name as like his
Oh.
apprentice.
Okay.
And he's
So
like, she used this
technically-
tactic against the droids.
Thrawn did know. I think we can give a little bit of a pass here because the grand masses have not read Thrawn.
Yeah, no, I'm totally cool. Hey, Filoni to me is Lucas 2.0, more or less.
Yeah.
If he wants to make some changes to books, I do not mind.
It's fine with me.
It's totally fine, especially such a minor detail like that. But I'm excited to see how he approaches that with Ahsoka next episode. I think that we already saw a little bit, knowing that she was the apprentice to Anakin, that he couldn't underestimate her because he's never
Well, I
fought against her.
Right, and I think what's going to end up happening is he's going to approach Ahsoka as if he's approaching Anakin / Vader, and that's what he's going to attack. But I think Ahsoka's moved into a period where she's like, I'm not that
mature.
predictable anymore.
Right.
I'm more in tune with the Force, so I think you'll be able to predict me to a point, but not as well as you might think you can.
Haha,
Yeah,
deep.
I'm sure he may very well expect her to be hyper aggressive and
Yeah.
risky, like Anakin would have been.
Yep.
Whereas she may sit back and use some subterfuge or something like
Yeah.
that, or be more patient than he'd expect her to be,
Force
because he's not aware of her awakening
Yeah.
that she's had.
Ahsoka the White.
Interesting. Good stuff. Good stuff. See, it's all these raw thoughts. Like we're just now. We haven't had time to like prep for this episode. We just got into it, so this is fun
Raw
stuff.
thoughts.
CJ, what are your thoughts? I'm sure you got some things going on in that big brain of yours.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I don't think we were talking about Thrawn and him potentially leaving too much time. I don't know. I'm gonna be honest, I don't have many thoughts right now. I'm still kind of processing the episode.
Yeah. The only reason I think that is because we know in the finale that they're going to have a conflict. So by that nature, he left too much time, which just doesn't seem like a mistake to me that Thrawn would make. You know what I mean?
Or is it a mistake? Or is he 10 steps ahead of us as well?
I think it's going to be more like the third season of Rebels, where he just kind of runs through them, like, tactically for that entire season. And maybe some, like, special force thing happens at the end. But Filoni, I think, I mean, he did that. He's doing this. Like, I feel like that would be consistently how he's shown Thrawn to be. So I think they lose the next episode, honestly. Like,
I agree.
They just get outclassed, and I think they get stranded. I don't know, Jim doesn't want to see that, but
I know. Yeah, I think it's very possible it happens. like I said, I'd be a little disheartened.
I think that's the most probable outcome, honestly.
Yeah.
Speaking
of that, he outwits them, they're gone, and they're left trying to figure out how to get back or what to do now that he's back and they've lost.
What if Ezra knows how to call out to the whales now and can get them right back?
No, because why hasn't he done that?
He would have done that.
Yeah.
We didn't have a ship.
He's just as eager to get home as anyone. If he could just call to the Purrgil, he would have done so.
He didn't have a ship, though.
Oh, you mean just like hop on Ahsoka's ship and fly out and wait for the Purrgil to show up and call out to him?
Yeah, call him out to bring in hyperspace.
He's a pretty resourceful guy. 10 years.
He didn't have a ship. Where is he going to get one?
This planet's supposed to be a wasteland, right?
Yeah, it's
pretty
just
much
the Empire. And
so, I mean, the only way he would be able to get one is he snuck onto the Star Destroyer and took a TIE fighter out or something. Which in me in 10 years, I'm probably trying.
Yeah.
He's Ezra. He's not doing that. He's one with the Force.
Yeah. So let's talk about Ezra. Last week, and I kind of made it clear in the comments to you guys, I wasn't able to talk about it with you. I was not a fan of Ezra last week. I was more so not a fan of Ezra and Sabine. Their interactions just did not click for me. It was very weird.
And last
week's episode,
they didn't have much. They had like,
I know, but the little conversation they had just seemed weird to me.
There's some weird, like CJ said, awkward tension.
Yeah,
that's what I would describe it.
But I didn't feel like it was in the show. I just felt like it was more so in the acting. And maybe it is, but it didn't come across as the awkward tension in the show. I definitely know that Sabine was like hiding all the bad things that had happened and like that part of it. But I just didn't think that their acting together worked very well.
Their on-screen chemistry is not great, even in this episode.
Even in this episode, it's still not good. But I think Ezra plays, or the guy who plays Ezra, Aladdin, whatever his name is, he plays. I say that not to be racist, but because he played Aladdin, okay, in a movie. Please don't cancel me. All right. But I think that he actually played Ezra really well. Like he was a very convincing adult version of Ezra. This episode, which is not something that's really bothered me previously, I just felt like Sabine stunk. Like I just felt like she was a bad actress.
She's kind of up and down, I think.
A lot of downs.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say a lot of downs. She wasn't bad in the first one, but she is kind of like there's a clear gap in her ability in that of like Rosario Dawson or the guy that the guy that played Balin,
Ray Stevens.
Like you can kind of tell that they're a little bit better at what they do now than what she is. Even the girl that plays Hera. Hera seems pretty Hera, but Sabine is kind of
brick wall, man.
Yeah, it just is. Whenever there's emotion, she can seem to do a little bit okay with emotion, but most of her just regular dialogue just seems very like flat and you can tell it just doesn't. It takes me out of it. I'm just like, ugh. Like when I'm trying to remember the exact words, but it was when they were riding on the little turtle shell, and she and Ezra are talking, and he's like, "Where's Ahsoka?" And she's like, "He's like complicated." She goes, "Yeah, complicated. I was just like, ugh, cringe. I don't know.
Yeah.
It bothered me a little bit. Not the line itself, just the way she delivered it. It's hard to put my finger on exactly why, but
Seems like she's just a troubled person, and
Emo. Don't bother
yeah,
me.
and
yeah.
Stop
And I
talking.
understand, like, she's probably got a lot going on as far as like
You might be stranded, by the way.
she's very happy to have found Ezra, but also knows she just very much put her galaxy at threat as well as saw her master die. So I understand like the emotional turmoil that should be going on there, but I don't actually see emotional turmoil where she's like very happy but very sad and guilty. You know?
There's not like an up and down. It's just like a line.
It's like
She's
a
got her-
flat line of like no
No humanity.
Yeah,
she's
it's
got
odd.
her feet up on the dash, just kind of sulking,
Twitching.
And maybe
twitching.
I'm trying to explain it like that's her Mandalorian and her just like shelling off the emotion side of things. But that's not really who Sabine ever was. She was a very emotional person in Rebels.
Yeah.
And it kind of flew by her emotions sometimes.
She does feel a little off from Rebels. I don't know why. I haven't seen Rebels in a long time, but she does feel like just a little bit different than the sense you get from her in Rebels.
I mean,
don't
she's
really know what it is.
10 years older and people change, but it's just been, I don't know, her performance has not been great for me and at times takes me out of the show. That's just something that it bugs me because I know that this studio can produce great acting and characters and script and dialogue because we've seen it in Andor. But just so many times in like Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, Kenobi, not so much in Kenobi. I actually felt the dialogue in Kenobi was pretty good. But as well as in this show, sometimes it's just like the sub characters. It just drives me nuts that we can't get consistent dialogue. The dialogue it's so important for a show. And a lot of other stuff can be great and fun. Like Thrawn's dialogue has been phenomenal. I think it's easier because Thrawn is voiced by the same guy as was in Rebels. Very convincing, and we know that he's a phenomenal actor. But yeah, I've had some issues with that. Oh, we've got some comments here I haven't been seeing. Okay. Thrawn doesn't do it for me as a big bad. If the enemy in Star Wars is not in some way superhuman, it falls short of the stakes the franchise has established. Darth Nihilus could eat words. Thrawn is just smarter than the average Imperial officer. Please, I understand that. Like, can Thrawn live up to the hype of?
We got witches.
Yeah, and I think that we're gonna see that Thrawn's power isn't in his individual power. It's in his ability to amass power and control power. And being able to use the tools that he has at his hand. And I think that makes him really impressive because you're right. He doesn't have the Force or some kind of supernatural ability. He's not going to be the most fun villain to watch, like maybe that we would see in a superhero movie. But like Palpatine, he wasn't supernatural until the end of Return of the Jedi, right? For the first 3 movies, he was an imposing villain. And we only see anything supernatural from him when he tortures helpless Luke. Outside of that, his villainy was the fear that you have in him, the power that he has, his ruthlessness, right? And he was still a great character before we learned. Because you didn't know that he was a Sith like Vader. I mean, you could probably assume, but we didn't know the power that Palpatine had until we saw it. Now, granted, there's no threat of Thrawn using his Force abilities like with Palpatine. And I understand totally what you're saying, but I think that it's just a different side of Star Wars. He was a good villain in Rebels, and I feel that Rebels had an issue it being a cartoon and you know where the story's going, that you know Thrawn's going to eventually fail. That kind of makes it hard.
Right. Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is people like this exist in the galaxy, and this is a realistic situation that would happen, I feel, in the story. So I get what you're wanting in some kind of supernatural villain, and I think that's why they bring in Balin and Shin, because you're right, we do need those villains in Star Wars, and especially in a story like this, and witches. And I think the witches are kind of wrapped around Thrawn's pinky, and I think he's going to use their power. So,
well, he already is.
Yeah, he is. But I mean, like, we're going to see some witchcraft next episode in combat, probably. So, Rachel asked me a question today.
Ooh.
And I believe you guys hit it on last week. So if you did, we don't have to touch on it today. But what's up with their armor? Do you think it just has gotten damaged over time, or was that damage from their trip across the galaxy? Or are they dead and they were brought back?
I think it's. Well, I certainly don't think they're dead after this episode, especially because they're getting shot with blasters and they're making stormtrooper screaming sounds.
Yeah.
So I think when we first see the Chimera, it's patched up with gold.
Right.
So I think that's just what they're using to patch up their.
Yeah, I just think they're using the natural resources around them.
Mm-hmm. They're doing what they have to do to keep their little, band running. So
I just wonder where all this damage came from. Do you think it just came from like defending the ship while they're making repairs or something?
10 years of doing whatever it is they're doing there.
I mean, that looked like a desert planet, so the sun's
weren't
just
necessarily there the entire time.
Yeah, and the sun's just beating down on everything if they are there most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Rust
on the plastoid armor. Yeah, makes perfect sense. Okay. So, I totally forgot to talk about the thing that was the other C-3PO reference. So, while Ahsoka and Huyang are flying through the debris field, Huyang says something that was the exact same line that C-3PO says in Empire Strikes Back when the Millennium Falcon is flying through the asteroid field. Says, if we don't get out of here, we're going to be pulverized, or something along those lines. That is an exact C-3PO quote.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's funny.
So I thought that was funny. They must have had the same base programming for reacting to such a situation.
Chewie, plug the professor into the hyperdrive.
I think that's pretty shortly after, or shortly before Han Solo tells him to shut off Goldenrod. Turn Goldenrod off, whatever it was. So I think that's like the line that made him do it. Because that's right after he says, never tell me the odds. Anyways, moving on. So, pretty cool how they located Ahsoka by using the Force / Night Sister magic. And it seemed to be that they located her because of her connecting to Sabine through the Force, correct?
That's what I got from it.
Yeah. I'm not sure if that just helped them along in the grand mothers.
Mm-hmm.
Would have gotten to her eventually, and she just basically helped them arrive at their conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she gave them a shortcut.
And do you think that? So I know you guys discussed it last week, but do you think that Sabine sensing Ahsoka in the Force was too much Force power for Sabine, or do you think that much was acceptable? Just being able to.
I think most of that work was done by Ahsoka.
I would agree.
But if Sabine does have any connection to the Force, and this is a pretty small thing.
Yeah.
But it is something.
I would expect to see. Yeah, it's something.
She's definitely going to connect to the Force to do something in the next episode.
Yeah.
I feel like they've been working on
Ezra
that
might be
all
the key. Ezra might be the key that helps her get there. Or Ahsoka being enlightened now might be the key that helps her get there. But we'll probably see something like that. I just hope it's not too much. You know what I mean? It can't be overboard. It can't be like Rey freaking shooting lightning out of ship on accident.
Please no.
It can't be that strong. I mean, we have to still respect.
She reaches up and stops the Chimera from docking.
Yeah, she just pulled it freaking out of the hyperspace ring. Like, whoa!
I think she's just gonna like force push someone.
Yeah, I think it'll be something like that. Like she's gonna force push someone and it actually works for once. Like, and I can deal with that. That doesn't bother me too much. But how did you guys feel about Ezra fighting in this episode? What do you think?
A little goofy.
You thought it was goofy?
Take your lightsaber, please, sir.
Yeah, go ahead, Siege.
I was fine with it. I don't know. I thought it was. I think in some ways it shows that he's grown a little bit in the Force. I don't think he would have been able to do that in season 4 Rebels.
He's been doing a lot of connecting with the Force these 10 years.
So I think it does a good job of showing that. And so I'm all right with it. I think he will have to use a lightsaber at some point, but as a subtle way of showing that he hasn't been static in the past 10 years, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I agree with both you and David. I think that it was interesting to see how strong he's gotten in the Force, but I also think it was odd that like he would not take his lightsaber and fight, because I feel that Sabine acting as a Mando in this case and him acting as a Jedi would have gave them much higher odds of success rather than him saying, "My ally is the Force," like a Power Ranger or
Knocked
something.
out.
Yeah,
Well, I
was
kind of.
just- Go ahead.
I thought part of it was that he kind of sensed the need
Tension.
for Sabine to grow a little bit, and I think
Yeah.
maybe part of it is he's been using nothing but the Force for the past 10 years to defend himself, so he's kind of
He may
you know,
not
this
have.
is-
He may not be very practiced with the lightsaber. That's good.
yeah. So he's like,
Probably is
but
not.
and the other part of him is like, this is your opportunity to like force you into using a lightsaber.
Mhm.
So
Well, force her. I get it. I also think that this was both for Sabine and for us as fans, because that people have been saying we're excited for Ezra to get his lightsaber. But we're also looking for, there's going to be people that are saying that's his lightsaber, he needs to get it. And Ezra saying that is kind of telling the fans, hey, it's Sabine's now. It was given to her. And also Hugh Yang said that in like the first episode, maybe the second, that it's your episode. You've made it yours now, or your episode, your lightsaber. You've made it yours now. So perhaps
Ezra gets one of Ahsoka's from the vending machine.
no,
she
I don't
does
want him to have one of
quite
us.
a few.
Oh, it's true. Oh, from the ship. Okay.
Yeah,
From the vending machine.
but then he gets it and learns out just Hugh Yang's like training lightsaber. Doesn't really
This
do
one's
anything.
set to
It's
stun
like
always.
Form 4 and the lightsabers go straight through it. Whatever. But I would like to see him get a lightsaber, whether he builds his own
Double
or
blade.
he takes like Balin's or something and like purifies the crystal. I don't know.
Double
Pretty cool. All right, let's see what this comment says here. Yeah, for those of you that are watching, so we got some people joining the live stream today. Be sure to click like if you can, and then comment. Let us know what you guys are thinking. We'll try to read all the comments we can.
us about
Perhaps
your
Star Wars
friends.
should settle on what Star Wars is about. Is about the evil of cloning, interspecies intolerance, the Skywalker family, freedom and tyranny. Has the overreaching conflict been lost? Or over? I think you mean overarching conflict. That is an interesting point. I do think that Star Wars generally comes down to the battle of good and evil and the choice of selfishness versus selflessness. At least certainly with this part of the Jedi, that's the main goal of it. And there's a lot of things that subpoints that can go into that, whether it be just using whatever purpose necessary to get your own goals, like whoops. Uh-oh. My pen just exploded in my mouth. That's not ideal.
Tasty.
Ew.
Been hanging out with Thrawn too much.
You better go get that taken care of, buddy.
All right, I'll be back in a second. You guys
We'll entertain the folks
Entertain.
at home. Man, Jake's going blue. All right. Oh, but anyway, so anyways, back where were we, Jim?
Talking
Jake
about
was-
the overarching
talking-
narrative in Star Wars.
Yeah, so I think Star
Oh,
Wars is
yeah.
actually really all of these things that are mentioned in this comment, because it's never always about the Skywalker family. It's never always about tyranny. It's never always about evil cloning. We get little snippets of all of those, given whatever story is trying to be told at any given time. So I don't think it's fair to say Star Wars is really about any one of those things, when it's large enough to be about all of those things and more.
I think the question's kind of wondering, is this following some sort of narrative? Is this pushing us towards like a certain thing? Or, has Mando just been kind of more so filler, small building blocks, very, very small ones?
Yeah,
And
and
this is
as
kind
I've
of
been
a
watching
huge
this new TV universe of Star Wars unfold, I can see what a lot of it's trying to do. A lot of it's put into a box of the sequel trilogy movies, right? Whether you really like them or really hate them, what they laid out it's there. And now these shows have to work around what's been laid out there. So when you say, what are they working towards? Well, they're trying to work towards explaining a lot of what's going on there. So
Yeah.
their path is kind of funneled a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think trying to make it about any one of those things in and of themselves is a little too limiting for what we've seen Star Wars can be, especially if you look at the Legends material and the games and all of that, because
Right.
there's just so many different the more narrow you make your overarching theme, it's just so limiting on what you can create. You eventually get to creating the same thing over and over and over again, which I'm sure some people want because of how fondly they remember the original 3 movies.
Yeah.
But
it's a good formula.
I think having an expanded lore though, and really being able to flesh out a universe, one, there's more upside, like there's just more cool things you can do with it that are unique even from iteration of Star Wars to other iteration. And it also just also makes for a better viewing experience, I think. But I guess to answer that, I think Jake kind of hit it. The overarching theme of Star Wars is really just simply good versus evil, like at its most basic. Most of Star Wars villains throughout history are not that nuanced. Like the evil guys are evil,
Not a lot of
the
gray.
good guys are good. And there's like gray side characters or gray characters that become good guys, but there's rarely like a blurred line between what's good and bad, and it's about the good trying to overcome the bad. I think that's what it is at its most basic.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
Yep.
And I can see those themes in Ahsoka this season. It may not be as prevalent as the movies, where it's like that's really focused on, but I can still see it those themes playing out in Ahsoka.
Yeah, I hope we get more. Like Jedi Academy stuff.
How you mean?
Like in between now and like Kylo Ren.
Oh, like you want to see Anakin's Jedi Academy?
Yeah, I want there to be more.
Or Luke's Jedi Academy, I mean.
More Jedi, like stuff that happens.
I would agree.
I don't see it unless they recast Luke.
Sebastian Stan.
I'd be all for it.
Sebastian Stan. They should have just done that to begin with, man. They should have just done Sebastian Stan.
And I'll vote twice for CJ. 4 votes.
Yeah.
But I think that if they were to do that, they'd have to, because they're not going to animate a fake Luke as often.
And I don't want them to.
Me neither.
Just don't.
I think it'd be fine. It's the freaking 40 years. 50 years.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. As long as it's a good actor, I'm okay with it. It's time.
I agree.
He said it himself.
But what was that? What were we on? I totally just lost my train of thought.
No, we were talking about the themes of Star Wars, good and evil. We went through that whole train.
Oh, yeah.
We can't move past that.
Characters having to make those choices a little bit, though. It's not something we've really had to deal with. We've had a very definite evil and a very definite good guy. And I would like to see some people having to choose between right and wrong. And we saw Sabine kind of have that kind of choice where she had to choose a selfish desire versus a selfless desire of having to save as many people as possible by not allowing Thrawn to come back.
Die or...
Because, I mean, honestly, you could think about it. If she destroyed that thing, she could have destroyed it, and then Ahsoka still could have gotten saved by the World Between Worlds, and then they still could have used the whales to get to that galaxy.
She would have been dead.
Who? Sabine?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. But that'd be a selfless sacrifice.
That's what the point. It'd be a sacrifice.
Yes, a selfless sacrifice.
No.
So I think that, but that's good though. I mean, you're seeing character development and character choices, and we're seeing the consequences for the decision she made, and we're going to see the consequences of Thrawn coming back probably next season or in that movie, whatever it may be. But I do think it's been cool how they've woven that theme in all the way since Mando season 2, the threat of Thrawn returning, and it's definitely building, and I'm excited to see how that goes. Well, not even Pelion, but in Mando season 2, the episode with Ahsoka, she asks at the end, "Where's Thrawn?"
Yeah, the lady too. What about is Skeleton Crew cast in this time period?
Yes.
Okay.
Skeleton Crew takes place in this time period.
So that's gonna kind of connect the dots somehow.
Yeah, I don't know
And then we're gonna get the
exactly
movie.
what their role is going to be.
No,
I
weird.
don't even know if they're like are associated with any kind of like government or anything. So we'll see. I believe isn't Jude Law supposed to be like a old Jedi, like the leader of their crew or whatever?
Oh, there's a Jedi.
I thought
I
that
did
he was a
not
Jedi.
know. I did not know that. I'll have to
I
do
could
some
be
research.
mistaken. I
don't
know it's like
anything
these young
useless.
kids like escaped from some kind of prison or something. I don't know. Whatever.
We'll find
That
out.
sounds fun.
Okay. What else can we talk about in this episode? Oh, Balin.
Balin and
We'll kind of
Shin.
take just an episode or a character by character
Characters.
Yeah.
breakdown. So Balin and Shin team up with the Banditos on this planet, and they track down the Jedi. And Rachel's my wife, for those of you who don't know. She said that this felt very Lord of the Rings-esque.
I said the same thing.
Did
I was
you
like,
actually?
I said Urukai.
Yeah. Tonight looks like meat's back on the menu.
Yes, hobbits is precious.
But yeah, Rachel, especially when they rode up on the hill, she
Mhm.
was like, "Oh, this seems very Lord of the Rings." Maybe they used New Zealand or something.
Maybe.
But so they get there, and something happened that I really did not expect. You could see the tension kind of between Balin and Shin, where their goals were not aligned, and Shin didn't understand why Balin was doing what he was doing and how he wasn't like seeking this power.
Go for it.
He was like, "Look, I can see that I've trained you, but you're driven by your ambition for power, and you see this immediate power in your grasp.
Yeah.
That's what you want, and that just doesn't align with my purpose." So he sends her off, which I would have personally thought that he would have helped and then like parted ways and said, "Go back and get your seat in the Empire," or whatever.
Well, it was your final lesson. Where we failed.
And maybe he thought that she needed to have this on her own for her to succeed in what she was looking for. But it really seems like he is not like trying to bring some power back to that galaxy and like overthrow things. Because if he's sending her off to get her power in the new Empire, then he seems like he's going to totally let that go and not even worry about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's came here to get what he was seeking, and everything else is going on around him is just like, I'm unconcerned.
He just wanted to get here.
Yeah.
So he's totally opposite than every other character in this show who wants to get back. And I'm wondering if he is to be here to stay and to die here and hopefully become a Force ghost. Is that the power he's seeking?
Sith relic, man.
And being able to live eternally?
Sith relic.
I think from the last episode they talked about it a little bit, where he's like he's looking for some power to break. He was talking about breaking the cycle of the galaxy, you know, the Empire rising with the Jedi, and then they fall in the Empire. And so I don't know if it's anarchy that he's after, or if it's some kind of, maybe it's some kind of like end of the Force, or like removing Force users from the other galaxy. I could see him blaming that.
Interesting. He's blaming the Force for everything that happens. And the conflict of the Force and the battle of the dark and the light is just going to always be a battle that happens as the Force rises.
And so he's looking for some way to use the Force to just like cut that off. I don't know. That's kind of what I gathered from there. It's maybe not that exactly. They're being really mysterious about it, but there's something that he's looking for, and the power is related to him stopping this reoccurring conflict that keeps happening.
Yeah, he definitely seems like he is on kind of a Thrawn-esque mission. Or not Thrawn. I always do that. What's the name of the guy from Marvel?
Thanos?
Thanos. Thank you. A Thanos-esque mission where he is saying, my ends justify my means. I am on this goal of fixing the galaxy. And whatever happens to get there is fine, because I know that my end goal is just, and that it is what the galaxy really needs to end this cycle of violence. So maybe you're right, CJ. Maybe he's looking for some kind of way just to stop people from being able to continue to fight with each other. He doesn't see either side as right or wrong.
That's a really good take.
I think that's why he let Shin go instead of helping them. Because in doing so, if he had helped them and helped them capture, it kind of helps Thrawn stay a step ahead, and it would keep that cycle going. Like if Thrawn outright wins, it keeps that cycle going because he gets back. They start their new empire, and then Jedi rise up and they overthrow
Yeah, at
him.
the same time, he stops Ahsoka from intervening. Or he tries
That's
to.
true.
Because I was
don't know,
thinking the same
maybe-
thing. I was like, if he doesn't care, if he wants Shin to succeed and that's important to him, I'm surprised that he would stay to watch. Now, I think that he clearly cares about Shin. He's trained her since who knows how young she was. And he wants her to succeed. And maybe he was just fighting Ahsoka to keep her from, because he knows that she'll beat Shin. So maybe he was confident that Shin could handle Ezra and Sabine, but not so confident that she could handle Ahsoka. So maybe that's the only reason, was just to try to protect her so that she can go on and do what she wants in her life. But you can tell that afterward, he just resigned himself to saying, okay, I'm done with this part of the story. And
I wanted to mention that a little bit. Ray Stevens, his acting in that scene in particular,
so good.
You know, everything he's thinking in his emotions just by his facial expressions, where he's like, all right, well, all right.
I would love it if he could teach the other people on.
Yeah.
Too late now.
Yeah. Maybe he made some holograms, maybe 20.
Maybe he left 20 holograms behind him. Acting class 101, the 12 forms of acting.
103, 4.
But he's phenomenal. I'm not familiar with any of his work whatsoever.
Me neither. I have to go back and look now. So
I'd love to see if I can find him in anything, because he's just phenomenal. Just a great actor. Just such a good character of being able to show the fear, kind of, right? That you have in the character like that, the control that a character like him has, the confidence that he carries, but also the sense of, I'm doing the right thing. You know, like Sith sometimes believe that they're doing the right thing, but in a very evil, twisted nature. But he's not that. I don't think Balin's inherently evil.
No, he almost has us believing in his cause.
Yeah, I think that he's more so deceived or just mistaken. You know, maybe, we don't know what his cause is yet.
He's
honestly.
drawn.
Yeah, he's what?
Drawn.
What do you mean drawn?
He said something's calling to him.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's drawn to something. Yeah, I'm very interested in him.
dark
I'm
side.
just very bummed that we only get one more episode of this character. It's just it's bummed. I mean, of course,
I think they bring him back as another actor, and they just try and do as close to something. Maybe they write something in, but I think it would be really weird for them just to shelve that entire storyline.
The
Like, it's
attempt
just
on
as
my
weird
life has left me scarred.
he's just wearing
something
mask,
like
you know?
that.
He's got the
Maybe,
gold mask.
but I don't know. Do you guys think it would be better for them to just like kind of write something small to like send him off and then not deal with it anymore, or would you rather them recast his character as best they could and continue it?
It'll depend on what actually happens with this upcoming episode, because if it leaves this huge hole in the story, like this season, the show ended, and they didn't like rewrite anything after he passed, then they'd have to close up that hole somehow. And I'd agree they'd have to either fit. If it's a big enough hole where it's like you can't just like write this off in something that happened off screen, like he was about to do this, but then he died, or like a Purgo ate him or something. Like that would not work. Okay, but if his story's more or less wrapped up and we weren't expecting it, maybe we thought it was going to be bigger, but it's not, then I don't think that they'd have to bring him in. Maybe Shin can carry on his legacy or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Maybe.
I think that would work if Shin carried up. If Shin actually like kind of realized that she's not much without him and tries to track him down and like helps him. And
I'm under the impression that so Shin loses the battle, right?
Right.
She loses her little skirmish and she runs off. Do you think that she's going to then blame? Oh, my master abandoned me. He wasn't there to like support me. Like screw him.
Seems very Sith-like.
Yeah,
that's what
it seems very like she had a turning point right there, and like what happened during the battle just made her path so much worse for her, because now she's got essentially making the choice to commit to like Well, this patch.
Yeah. So is she heading back to the Chimera, or is she gonna track back to Balin somehow? What do you guys
I feel like she's. I think she's going to be pretty upset at Balin. Like,
So does she track him down to fight him?
I don't know if that's the case. I feel like she's gonna feel betrayed, like she was set up to fail.
Yeah.
Like, why weren't you there to help me? If you had been there, Master, probably could have won. I wouldn't be so freaking embarrassed.
Yeah, she probably heads back to the Empire, but the Empire also left her there.
Yeah.
So she's kind of stranded. Like, that's why I was very intrigued when Ahsoka said, "I can help you," and like told her, "Drop your weapon down and I can help you." Because all she's ever known of the Force is what Balin's taught her, and he clearly hasn't taught her to be like pure evil. But that's where she's leaned.
Yeah,
and it seems like he's trying to put the reins on her a little bit. But I wouldn't be surprised if we were able to see her kind of draw to the light a little bit when she realizes that the dark doesn't have much to offer her outside of just power.
Interesting.
But I don't know. I think she's an interesting character. I'd be very interested to see if Ahsoka and Ezra and Sabine try to sway her.
The light.
I don't know. I just don't know I don't know. There's a lot of things that can happen in this upcoming episode.
One episode.
It just there's so little time, but there's a lot that can happen. It was fun watching the combat between Ahsoka and Sabine and Ezra all fighting together against the stormtroopers and Shin. I enjoyed that very much. I did not enjoy where like Sabine is like, "Ezra, take her now," and he just runs at her with his fists. Like, bro, she's got a lightsaber, okay? And she's just like, poof, and pushes him. Didn't make a lot of sense to me personally.
A little cheesy,
yeah. Apart from that, though, good combat. I enjoyed it. It was fun watching those three characters together.
The Ahsoka fight was good with Balin.
Ahsoka and Balin was good. I mean, they didn't show a ton of it, but you just saw how powerful Balin was. Because even after, I thought we might see like a wiser, calmer Ahsoka, and being able to like say, "Okay, I fought this guy before, and now I can deal with him a little more easily." That was not the case. I mean, she was calmer and wiser, I would say, but she was not able to deal with him. I think he could have defeated her. If he was trying to kill her, I think he could have.
Yep.
I mean, he just grabbed her
Listen to
fist
the
like
Force.
it was nothing. So that was interesting as well. Balin's clearly very powerful, very strong, and I can't stop like theorizing in my head what it is he's looking for. It's like the only thing that's driving me right now because what's going to happen with Thrawn. He's going to get back, and whether the rest of the characters get back this episode or next. They're going to get back. Like I don't foresee anybody dying next episode. Do you guys?
Yeah.
Probably not. I could see
Balin die.
Balin or Shin potentially.
I don't think Shin dies.
I don't think she does, but I could see it.
Yeah, I think Balin could die. I think Morgan probably will die.
I don't think so.
And then a bunch of stormtroopers.
Maybe the Great Mothers.
No, I don't think. I think the Great Mothers live.
Hope they get a lightsaber.
Yeah, they might have to play a part in whatever comes next.
Would you be shocked if Sabine died next episode?
I would be.
She's not gonna die.
I certainly hope that doesn't happen.
Really?
I mean,
I think it'd be very interesting for both Ezra and Ahsoka's characters how they would deal with that.
Very interesting for sure. I feel like it's a waste. I mean, good characters die all the time, but I feel like it'd be a little bit of a wasted character.
I think good characters dying is one of the things that makes shows the best, in my opinion. Because it's hard and you don't expect it.
I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it if it has purpose.
It has to have purpose, like a sacrifice that she would make or something.
Yeah.
I think it could be her doing something to undo what she did to get everybody there. Like if she had sacrificed herself before, no one would be there. The ring they wouldn't have been able to find Thrawn.
And now,
so if it were to happen, it would be something for her to feel like she's rectifying that mistake,
right? Or at least attempting to. Maybe she even tries to and fails.
Or she just has to stay behind. Now she's the only Jedi in this galaxy.
Yeah. And now Ezra's got to go save her.
Yeah.
Get the whales.
It's interesting, but that's actually just what would happen.
Yes. Ugh.
I don't think she dies, but there's a case for her too where it would have some kind of thematic
Mhm.
continuity, I guess.
Yeah. I think that would be a good decision for them if they did it right. I think that'd be very interesting, especially if she laid her life on the line. Maybe that's when she really uses the Force, as she uses the Force in a way that allows her to save everybody else and make sure that they get back, but she can't, or she dies in the
Yeah.
process.
Mhm.
It'd be very emotional. That's just, to me, if you don't have moments like that in a show, it's not good. I mean, that's what makes Clone Wars and Rebels phenomenal. I mean,
Yeah.
the two best scenes in Rebels, three best scenes. Ahsoka sacrificing herself so Ezra can survive when she's fighting Vader.
Yeah.
Kanan sacrificing himself so the Ghost Crew can survive.
Mhm.
And then Ezra sacrificing himself so the rebellion can survive. Those are the three best scenes in Rebels. And I think it's Sabine's turn.
Yep. I agree.
Me or it's Ahsoka's.
Yeah, it's, oh, jeez. Don't say that. That would make me mad, unless, especially if it's for these characters. You know what I mean? Like, if Ahsoka were to sacrifice herself for something amazing, it would, or something like that, I would need it to be galaxy saving. And to save Ezra, a person who's been gone for a long time and we know does not make a difference in the grand scheme of things, as the Empire does eventually return. I mean, couldn't they have thought of a better villain than the Empire again? It just undoes everything. It just, I mean, for the sequel trilogy,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
having the Empire return just undoes so much of the sacrifice that other characters make. Just
I want
bothers
another
me.
player at the table.
Yeah, like if they could have done so many different things, they could have had what if it was like Mandalorians, man, in the sequel
Add
trilogy?
another player. Add
Just
one more.
a Mandalorian Empire like says, look, the rebellion is young, or I'm sorry, this new republic is young. It's time for a Mandalorian Empire to rise. How sick would that have been? How awesome
Yeah.
would a Mandalorian Empire be? I mean, and even if you can even have freaking Bo-Katan leading it. Like, so many things that could have happened. But
They made
no.
bad choices.
We just got Empire 2.0. It's not Empire 2.0. The only thing that's different about the Empire in the sequel trilogy and the OT is that Darth Vader is replaced by his grandson, Kylo Ren, who also wears black and a mask. It's trying to be Darth Vader. That's the only difference between the two empires. You still have freaking Palpatine.
I could
Places Grand Moff Tarkin.
I could rip on the sequel trilogy all day long.
Let's do it.
All day long.
I get time. Yeah.
Get ready,
It
Carl.
just bums me out because
Get ready.
you know that all these things that these sacrifices people make end up not mattering. Even the show that we're in, I can't even think about it. I don't even want to think about it. It's just all roads lead to the sequel trilogy, and you're like, Ahsoka can be a great show in its own right, but knowing what it leads to just means it doesn't really matter. They fail in the end. So, I mean, I guess we know Thrawn didn't make it to the sequel trilogy, so maybe them defeating Thrawn in the Thrawn movie or whatever they want to call it will end
Holds
up
the
being
purpose,
end up making a difference, because if the Empire had Thrawn, or I should say the First Order had Thrawn, and
because you need to explain to me why Ahsoka didn't respond to Leia's call to the Force and to anyone.
Well,
you know,
and I suppose you could say if the First Order had Thrawn, it wasn't being led by Crybaby Wren. Actually, I think Kylo Ren was probably the best character in the sequel trilogy, but it wasn't being led by Kylo Ren and Admiral Hux, that it probably would have been a totally different outcome.
Admiral Butts.
So I guess that can be us saving grace in a way. Oh, we got a new comment. Oh, General Grievous 19 says hello there. Come on, you guys know what to say.
Hello there.
Hello.
General
General
Kenobi.
Kenobi.
You are
You're a bold one.
welcome to the show, Grievous. Okay. Any final notes and comments about the episode before we wrap up? We're about 1:15 here, so we want to start wrapping things up. Is there anything we missed? Ahsoka's laughing and happy to see Ezra. I don't know that Ezra still doesn't really understand what they've done by bringing that hyperspace ring to the Chimera,
No,
right?
they need to explain lots of things. To
They
him.
need to catch this boy up.
Oh man.
And he needs to
He's
say
gonna be like,
goodbye to his little turtle people.
Turtle
And-
people. No,
Like,
turtle people
what
are going to be
hap-
like
what
the
happened?
Ewoks in Return of the Jedi, and they're going to defeat all the stormtroopers.
Oh, please.
They did not do a good job in this episode.
Can you
They did not
imagine
have
if,
good
like,
arms.
yeah, even when they tried to like collapse the dude on the dog, dude is on the dog.
Yeah,
or the
they
horse,
just missed.
they just missed.
I actually
Much more
appreciate that.
realistic. Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
They're just like slingshotting. I was like, oh no, please. And he just thunk and it just keeps riding. It made no difference whatsoever.
Like, what was
Can you
that?
imagine if that
Air?
actually made if those little dudes defeated all the
Like goes in his visor and he's like, oh, and
Oh,
falls off his
God!
horse.
I will say, for the laughableness of the teddy bears on Endor, it has created a great horror game in
Yeah.
Battlefront.
Battlefront.
Yeah.
What's that mode called? Ewok Hunt?
Yeah.
That's what it was on Battlefront 2.
The original Battlefront 2.
I would assume it's something similar.
I don't remember what it's called. That game is terrifying. Especially when
Yeah.
your flashlight dies and you're like the last one and you just hear
Where are they? Yeah, you can't see them very well.
yeah, it's terrifying. My baby has been sounding a lot like an Ewok the last few days, or a Jawa. She goes all the time.
Yeah.
Routini.
It's funny.
That's awesome.
Gotta get her that red cloak.
Oh, I should with
Brown.
the beady eyes.
Yeah.
All right, let's get it to our final rankings. Get out of here. Jim, you can go first. Jim, CJ, David, myself,
On a scale of 1 to 10,
or you can do 0 to 100. I don't care. How specific do you want to do?
0 to 10, I'll give it a 7.5.
Okay, Siege.
I'll give
All
it
right,
an 8.
7.5. And what could have made it better?
They gave me a little more answers to things that I desire.
Not saving
in-
everything for the finale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Explain the things, the questions you created in the previous 6 episodes. Answer some of those for me.
Do you
Could've made
think
it
they'll all
better.
get answered next week?
I doubt it. There's too many.
Siege?
I'd give it an 8. I think it would have been better if they had done something a little more unexpected. I thought it was pretty safe, not necessarily in a bad way, but just in a like after 5 when we talked about what was going to happen over the next couple of episodes. It was pretty close to what we thought would happen. So
Mm-hmm. David?
Yeah, I agree with CJ. I'd also give it an 8. Yeah, I figured we wouldn't quite get there. And I mean, we got some movement, but once again, we didn't find out anything about what Balin's looking for. We kind of just, we saw the interaction that we were all expecting. Everybody meets up, fights a bit. Some delays with the fighter pilot, starfighter piloting in the asteroids. So not a lot that's really happened per se.
Mm-hmm. I would generally agree around the same place you guys are. I would probably say between 7 and 8, maybe 7.6 or 8 even. But I would kind of push back a little bit on the things not being revealed. I do think that having the mystery and us wondering is one of the best parts of something. Once you know everything and it's been revealed, it's like the magician. The awe of how did they do this is the best part of the trick. And once you know, it's not exciting anymore. And if they reveal it all too early, it could just say, all right, now our last episode is just a battle and there's nothing to be learned anymore. So I might push back on that a little bit. However, I do understand what you're saying. For me, I would go along the same lines though of not really doing much to keep us on our seats. You know what I mean? And like excited. Because I mean, we're building up to the finale. I kind of want to have some things be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that's what they're doing. That's what's happening. Like, yeah, some of that would be nice to maybe give us some pieces or maybe make a little more tension or like risk where I feel like things are, maybe this could have ramped up a little bit more where I feel like things are really not going well and they got to hurry up and hustle because this is not good. This is not good.
Yeah.
But I never really feel like the good guys are in danger here. And I feel like when I'm getting to the finale as Thrawn is pretty much reaching his objective that I should be feeling that, on top of that, I also would add that I didn't think the acting was too good and at times. So that knocks it down a little bit for me. And then what was the one last point I wanted to make that I'd like to see improvement on? I don't remember. There was something else I wanted to say. But yeah, I just feel overall it could have delivered itself a little bit better, given us something to be excited about rather than just saying, all right, and now it's over. Oh, yeah, I remember. So I feel like the way this season was written essentially was Filoni said, okay, we're going to start. Our characters are here, and they're all kind of spread out. We're going to bring them together for a sole purpose of finding Thrawn. And they're going to get together and do it together. And then at the end, Thrawn's going to come back. And then he kind of just filled in the middle and came up with how that's going to happen. And then what's happened is we've gotten these chunk stories about bits and pieces of it, and they've been divided up by end episode and beginning episode. And I just think that like sometimes these individual episodes don't stand on their own too well, and that it hasn't built to that finale the way I think it should have. We kind of had a really high point in the middle of the season, and these last two have been like interesting and some good stuff happening. Like you said earlier, it's got some good meat to it, but I'd like to see it build up in intensity a little bit as we get to the end. So we'll just have to see how it goes. Next week will be the way we can judge the whole season as a whole. So hope all of us can be here this week as well as John, and hope you guys can all join us as well next week on the Rogue Podcast. We'll record again Tuesday night. You guys all going to be able to be there? I know I will be. I'll be good.
Should be good.
See, senor.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So at least the four of us will be here. Hopefully everything's good with John. It's something came up for him, so hopefully all's good. But if you're here, please be sure to drop a like again. Send this out to your friends if you guys thought it was a good recap. And we'll be back next week with more. We'll recap the entire episode and then probably talk about the show as a whole in following episodes. And then we got a little bit of a break, so we got some time. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. May the Force be with you.
Always.